So some of you may have heard my latest video I uploaded yesterday, and it was on noticing that happiness is not located in objects, that the happiness we feel when we get something that we like is not in the object. It's not in the car, it's not in the pieces of money, the paper. Like there's no happiness in money. There's no happiness in other people. The happiness is you. You're the happiness when you stop seeking it elsewhere.
It's just like the activity of seeking itself just occupies so much energy that it seems to veil happiness, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Just somehow hides it, which, you know.
Well, I was thinking back to like, I don't know if you can remember when you were first in love with your very first sweetheart. I went away to
Mhm.
one of those Jewish sleepover camps for a week and came home with a girlfriend two summers in a row. And I remember taking the bus to her house because I was only 14 and a half, and I couldn't wait to get around her. It's like, oh, in 30 minutes I will be with my sweetie. I will
Mhm.
be holding her hand. All will be well.
Mhm.
So that's the illusion of thinking that the happiness is outside you in something else, an object or a person. Neither objects, it's not in objects nor people.
And yet that's the irony, isn't it? That's the humanity of it is to seek um until it becomes obvious.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it is the Leela and I talk about the grace of futility. It's trying to find happiness until after a thousand tries, you give up. Like you're like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah. I think I've shared before that moment for me 2, 3 years ago when, preparing for a festival out in my shed, getting the camping gear together, and I wasn't thinking about anything in particular. There was nothing that was, I think I'd asked her normally occupied with some level of inquiry back then. And then suddenly, I just my legs went up, my knees went weak. I burst into tears or sobs because I realized the absolute futility in it all. It just hit me, and the body just, it said no, and I just fell to the floor and was sobbing, and it was just there is nothing ever. There will be nothing that I can do, that can be done, that I can experience that will give me what I'm looking for. And it was, it was just brutal. It was just brutal. And then, there's that period of time in which then it suddenly becomes obvious that the futility is needed at some level. It seems to be needed.
Hmm.
It's desired almost. It's like how, some part of life wants to feel that that utter failure. It wants to go so far away from itself, from its own loving nature,
Mm.
so that it can find its way back again and fall in love with that journey.
Yeah, it's an incredible imagined journey.
Yeah, it is. Even with wonderful pointers like "I am that I am," Tatvamasi, it's like "Thou art that." Even with those really simple and obvious pointers, we go looking, but we
Ye-
don't do it consciously. There really isn't a conscious aspect to the seeking. The moment there is a conscious awareness of what this seeking energy is, then it begins to collapse anyway. That's the beauty of it. And the energy that's wrapped up in seeking, it's incredible.
mm. Yeah, I think it's designed to bring you to your knees.
Yeah, I'd agree there. But it worked.
Well, the ego can be a stubborn bastard, you know?
Oh yeah. Raman in some of Rama's works, I can't remember where, but he calls the ego the demon or the mind. He says the mind is the demon. That very fickle, um can't remember the words now, but yeah, just and I think for a while I certainly looked at it that way. A wily old beast that was going to trick everybody, including me, so to speak. And then eventually you just see that there's security mechanisms centered around a single thought, and you don't see the thought. You don't see it for what it is.
Yeah, somebody upon hearing about like notice notice the space between your thoughts, the person said, "There's space between my thoughts."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is energetic because you can hear all is Brahman 100 times. All is Brahman. All is Brahman. There's only Brahman. Everything is Brahman already. You can hear it, but it just energetically doesn't click until all of a sudden one day it just becomes, as they say, as obvious as the nose on your face. Of course it's all Brahman. What else?
mm. I had one of those moments. Um, I'd had a shoulder, no, I'd had a knee operation, and I hadn't been moving very well. And I asked my son if he would drive me into town so we could have a wander around the shop and maybe get some lunch. So we grabbed some snacks and went and sat in the car. And as soon as I sat in the car and closed the door, everything became silent, and the whole interior, exterior just lit up like somebody'd shone a torch on me. My breath disappeared, and I started to sob. And he was looking at me, he's like, "You okay? You okay?" And was just like, "Yeah." And I couldn't explain what was going on. I just couldn't do it. It was like somebody had turned the light on and everything else had turned off. And it was, yeah, a glimpse where you have no words for it at all, none whatsoever. Yeah, it was incredible. Mm.
Yeah, have you guys ever had the experience where, it'll be really obvious there was not a me here? Like you'll just notice there's not a me here. Like it's not always that clear, but sometimes it's super clear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah. And I find that's when like there's just like there could be like sounds going on, but it'll just be like so quiet and still.
It's funny in a way, just as we can get addicted to our thoughts, where, you know, you go from thought to thought to thought with almost no break. You can also like it can flip-flop where suddenly let me let Cedric in. So instead, you begin to want to be silent, want to be quiet. Like that becomes attractive, where before the thoughts were exciting and interesting.
The experience here was very much when those moments um, happened. There would be this. There was the desire. Then was always to sit and just to have the that feeling of noticing the watching and noticing the hearing. It was, oh, that's all I wanted to do. That's all I wanted to do. And then within a couple of days of that happening, there would be something that stopped all of those things, and it would be back into the turmoil of the mind. And then 2 or 3 days, and oh, what happened? Where did that desire to just be still go?
Yeah.
What happened there? You're lost in it all, beautifully lost in it all in some ways.
Welcome, Cedric. Welcome, Indira.
Hey,
We were just talking about how sometimes it's painfully obvious there's no me here. Like in a way, you could say in a way all the me is just like kind of just a credit taker, a credit taker. See what I did? You see this great meaning I put together? I'm so wonderful. It's all about me, but there isn't one.
by what means do you know there isn't a me?
Oh, great question. By looking directly right now.
And what's looking directly right now?
Well, if there's a feeling that there's a me, it's not that. It can't be looking. If there's a sensation of a me, it can't be the one that's looking.
Looking is
Noticing.
just looking is just what's happening. Scratching this leg is just what's happening. But I can't say anything. There's nothing. It's so wordless. Uh,
It seems like, well, for the past year and a half or so anyway, I've been only listening to the radical speakers, and it seems that they say that just the fact of looking what do you call, reifies that there is someone, and kind of I stuck to that for a long time. But then hearing like Leela and Indira and others speak, that it seems very obvious that it's very clear that that there's no one, and that's kind of BS. But in a way, it's kind of now seeming like almost every kind of speaking or sharing is somewhat true in some way. Like I I'm not really rejecting to hear like there's no one or whatever, but yeah, I think it can get stuck on the idea, okay, if there's looking, then there's someone. But yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And putting words to it's the bird before the bird, but that's just words.
The bird before the bird, is that what you said?
Yes,
I'll have to think about it.
that's the way I
I haven't heard that yet.
it's just the bird before the bird. It's the what's biting the lip,
Mm.
what's breathing in and out, just breathing in and out, happening. What's noticing that? It's very silent and subtle.
And it's so direct.
Yeah.
It's just it's so simply obvious
Mm.
that it can't be seen.
Yep. And
There's
the
no.
mind will come up and say, it'll have labels or it'll say, well, I'm doing this. But they're just thoughts arising. Sorry about that, Paul.
No, it worked really well.
If you say consciousness is doing it or awareness is doing it, um, yeah, that became a thing for me. And then hearing like nothing also can become a thing. Nothing is the thing that's doing it.
Yeah.
Wholeness is doing it. Everything is doing it. So, yeah.
So I think what can help there, Lila, is just knowing that this is unnameable.
Mm.
Mhm.
So I would say the word, forget the word, consciousness, it doesn't matter, really, truly.
Mm.
It's prior. It's prior to any
Mm.
word.
Yeah, just stop with any single word, any word at all that comes to mind. The moment there's a word there, just notice that that word itself is made up of symbols that don't mean anything until they're put together with other symbols. There's no meaning at all. And I mean, this, I don't know who it was that said it's like when faced with the reality that everything has no meaning whatsoever, at that point, ask yourself, what is the purpose? You know, what is my purpose if you want? And the first thing that comes to mind is why you're here, if you like. But I mean, those are all concessions on the truth being that you can't talk about this because it's just words. Even, oh, it's a pointer. That's a word. Everything. If you woke up in the morning and you suddenly spoke Chinese and had forgotten how to speak English and were fluent in Chinese, you know, what would happen? It'd be like, are you any different, really? Has anything changed?
I want to try and talk about why this is such a paradox. Um,
Good luck.
Consciousness can appear as anything, but it itself is nothing.
Mm.
And so the appearances are empty too. Like that's the freedom,
Mm.
is that this doesn't depend on any appearance.
You know, I've been studying fascia a lot, and the way that well, what's the best way? So the reality is behind fascia, and science is now understanding this in a way they've never understood before. That fascia is a single organ, and that the skeleton and the muscles are held within the fascia. And this is an experience for me as well, that the skeleton floats inside the fascia, and the fascia is in some ways like if you're sedated and they have to do an operation, the fascia appears as flaccid. It just appears as a white material. They cut through it and do whatever. But if when awake and you look at it under a scan, it's a network of tubes like crazy spider web that's alive and moving all the time. And it's in every cell. It touches every cell. It touches every facet of the body. And if I touch my hand here, I'm touching every facet of my body everywhere at once. Because as soon as I move that fascia, it's a single organ. And it is the whole of me and all of consciousness. This is something that I'm starting to see is speaking through the fascia. The memory is held there. Fascia is, like I say, it's fluid and dynamic, but if I were to hit my thumb, it becomes as strong as steel. 2,000 pounds per square inch, it changes to protect. And the more I look at it, the more I see how wonderful, it's like science has been focusing on consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. What is this thing of consciousness? And now they're turning towards fascia as the interface and saying it's fascia. When fascia is alive, there's consciousness. And then they're seeing, oh, it's in every cell. It reaches everywhere. It's one organ. And I can't drop the parallel between, life itself, how it's just one thing. Everything's pointing to it being one thing in connection with all things at all times. That's where the illusion of separation is. Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not making much sense. So the fascia is, if you're emotional, the first thing to respond is your fascia. And that creates the tension within the body. So if you've got tight muscles, it's because the fascia has tensed up because it's moving the emotion through. When it isn't moving, it solidifies. And as I said, it can go almost like concrete. So it's just I don't know, it's breathtaking.
It's spontaneously happening, what you're speaking of, Paul,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
no one doing anything. It's just spontaneously happening.
yeah, yeah. Innocently, just reaction, 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 reaction.
Mm.
Curious though, you know, like what do we mean, or at least I wanted to understand, like, what do we mean by, like, like you said, it's spontaneously happening, or when people say, it's just happening. Like, what do we mean by that? Like, do we mean like they're appearing without like a cause, without like a pre-existing cause?
Well, for example, keep it simple for me. Like I'm scratching this leg and there's a rash. I didn't make the rash come on here. It's just a rash. Um, when I am, or when anybody is, when any everybody here, when you get up in the morning, watch the body. Just watch. Notice how the body just does what it does, and the mind will come up and label it, but it's just labeling. That the labels are spontaneously just happening. I'm not making the labels come up. They just come up, just like everything that's coming out of this mouth is spontaneously. I it's just coming out. Booga booga boo. I'm not even meditating on it or premeditating or making it come out. It's just spontaneously coming out. Um, Doing the dishes, taking a shower, simple things of that nature. Watch the body just go take a shower. The mind will say we're not going to take a shower, and the body just goes and takes a shower. How can I explain that? I really can't. And so it's trusting, I guess, the intelligence in the body. It's just and it's been happening. I'm just putting words to it, but the body has been taking care of itself since this body was a child, playing in the sand. It didn't have to think about playing in the sand. The body wanted to go play in the sand with ants. Um, Emotions come up sometimes, but I'm not making the emotion come up. It just comes up. Like, oh, oh, wow. Oh, sadness. It feels like sadness or grief or whatever. That just spontaneously happens. It's not like I'm writing about it. Okay, in the next hour, okay, sadness is going to come. No, it just happens on its own. And when it's seen like this, it does feel freeing, because for a seeming long time there was just this belief that Indira was making the emotions come up, or Indira was doing all of this. But there's no responsibility. Yay. So, yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say for me, one of the easiest ways to look at it is, do you fall asleep? I mean,
Mhm.
are you the one that puts your body to sleep, and are you the one that wakes it up? I mean, who is that one? Because, that is always spontaneous.
Mhm.
You can say, oh, I want to go to sleep now. I'm going to go to bed now. But you never know consciously when it goes to sleep. So there is it's that one thing. When I wake, when I sleep, that's always spontaneous. So it's guaranteed, absolutely. And there's no way of denying it. And then look at everything else that falls out of it. See if there's any action. Because for me, it's all reaction.
Mm.
Everything's reaction. I mean, you'd have to draw a line in the sand and say, right, or or draw a line in water and say, I start here. I'm going to move my hand. I'm doing this. It's not happening spontaneously. I'm doing this because I've drawn a line in the. It's all arbitrary. It's I don't know.
So can we say, the rain is just happening?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It,
absolutely.
or like, I feel like that's one way to see it, but at the same time, one can say, well, there's evaporation, then condensation, then precipitation, that, it's a process that the other, uh, without a cause prior to it, it can't arise. Is it possible that things can arise without a cause?
Well, everything arises without a cause.
Mm.
Like, for example, even the answer right now, can that be given without me first saying what I said prior to that? Maybe before I could have said, hey, Michael, do you want to go to somewhere else? And your answer would be different.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Well,
Question.
I have a question for you, Cedric. Like, so here it was peace. That was all I was ever interested in, was unconditional peace. What is it for you?
Yeah, I think I've even gone past peace. I've discovered that that too is impermanent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because, I remember, just like, meditating and experiencing great peace. And when I leave, go do other things, I see myself like a bit like, stressed out, feeling like, like it was just too, I feel like I'm experiencing peace under certain conditions.
Yeah.
I
So
wanted to. Mhm.
that's conditional peace. What I'm talking about is a peace that doesn't depend on any conditions.
Right. What I'm saying is the suffering that led me to desiring peace arose due to conditions. So until I give up the condition, or at least what I'm saying is, let's say I want peace, right? I mean, let's say you want to eat food, you know, you first have to be hungry. You first have to feel like you lack something. You first have to feel like you don't have peace right now already to then want peace, right? And what I'm saying is that in all states of being, I feel that there's peace there.
Uh-huh.
That it's not like a certain period or a certain way of being.
Uh-huh.
I'm seeing that, everything is a movement
So
within a
peace isn't an
vaster
activity.
stillness.
Is that
Yeah.
what you say? Yeah, peace isn't an activity. I think that's what I'm hearing.
I guess I want, I'm saying that, like just for me to speak right now, isn't there a cause to this? Like, and isn't the cause of me speaking right now first picking up an identity? First, can anyone speak without first taking up an identity? Is it possible? Like, can anyone right now do it?
For me, the moment you said first, we're pointing to time. So if we're playing in time, we can come up with cause, we can come up with effect, we can come up with premeditate, we can come up with anything. It's all relative. If we just realize this is it, it's that simple. You are what you are. There's nothing else. There are no answers or questions to any dilemmas because they're all the same thing. Nothing arises because that even that suggests time. Nothing appears because that suggests time. Everything is a concession. Everything appears to happen, but nothing's really happening. And yet,
So to whom does it appear to? Like, isn't, like, for example, my friend was at work, and he said, I feel like life is a dream. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, the one who is saying let's say life is a dream, the one who is saying life is a dream, isn't he like part of the dream and a construct of the dream? So like, how can he know reality? Right? Let's say, I'm aware that, you know, I'm not dreaming, that there is nothing as a dream. Don't I have to be awake and out of the dream and out of that dream body to say that? And isn't the one acknowledging that there's a dream the one who is in the dream?
so are you looking for something? I mean, for me, I can only equate it with the lucid dream. So in those moments when I suddenly find myself and I know myself to be alive and awake and that the dream is my reality, and then I go flying or I do something else within the dream, or I stare at my reflection in a puddle, for instance, whatever, that's to me almost what you're describing. It's like you can't, what is it? The doorway to hell is still in hell. You can open the door, but you're not going to go anywhere. It's just realizing that there was no one there. So there's no waking up out of this into something else. You're waking up out of being a person. You're waking up out of being a limited human being into the experience of being a human being in everything that means without limitation.
Mhm.
So let's say, so if you're lucid in the dream, like, didn't you pick up another body? Like, you didn't go into the dream with your current body, right? You had to dream yourself into another body. The one looking at his reflection isn't the one here with me right now. When in the moment it's happening, I would look at you saying, well, he's sleeping on the couch. So isn't the one who's lucid dreaming inside the dream?
The one that you see sleeping in the couch on the couch doesn't exist. That one is your projection. That's your dream, if you like. It's the same dreamer, but there isn't a separate one on the couch. That's my point.
Right.
There's dreaming, but no dreamer. And even waking up is a dream. That doesn't happen either.
So then how does the word awakening and suffering arises?
They're words, aren't they? Find me a word that means something on its own without pointing to another word.
Say
Just
that
language.
again.
Yeah, it's the definite.
Yeah, just find a word that means something on its own. So,
Without
give without, so every word, there's no intrinsic value to any words. You have to have another word to make sense. So it's circular logic, which is the very definition of the mind, circular logic. I explain, I am, therefore I am. It's like, what? Because I said it, does it make it true? And there's, the joke. It does, doesn't it? Oh, it does to the mind. I said I'm here, so I must be. Descartes and his I think, therefore I am.
Oh goodness. Yeah.
He
Quite literally.
yeah.
So if something doesn't exist, is it possible to talk about something that doesn't exist? Like, how do you even speak of it? Like, let's say a ghost doesn't exist, yet, we're speaking about it and we're describing the ghost,
Well, but nothing exists.
no thing exists.
It's we're just
It takes
playing
time
around.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just playing around in separation.
Mm-hmm.
We're just playing around with words.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a joy. For me, there is a joy in all of that where there was a suffering before.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just such love in words where before there was such suffering in them.
Hmm.
And I know there is still suffering. I know that still exists in the words, but not here.
Mm-hmm. Well, there actually is no suffering in words. They're
Cool.
just sounds.
Yeah,
It comes from us, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Stories.
But it's like this is why it's impossible to talk about this, because everything we say, the moment we've said it, you can realize how ridiculous it sounds. You know, because it's like it comes from us, and Michael's 100% right there, but it doesn't make any sense at all. There's no us. There's no coming from anywhere. There's just this, and you are this
Yeah,
already.
yes. And this was never born. So bodies are born. Bodies will die. But you were never born. So how can you die?
And how can there be a fear of death unless believed that you are a body or that this is a body? That's where all the fear comes in.
It's like the body's afraid.
Mhm.
Or the belief in it. Yeah.
That's what the mind says. Yeah, that's what the
Yeah.
mind says. It's the body's fault.
Yeah.
So if I am nothing, how do I know of fears or of anything or of even words?
Exactly.
Exactly.
How do you know that, Adam?
Like, is it even possible to mention it?
Only for the joy,
Is in
only
the
for the
clear,
joy of mentioning it. Yeah,
huh?
for the joy of saying it. For no other reason. There seems to be a spontaneous joy in the knowing that no one is knowing, and there's no thing to know.
Well said.
Maybe. I thought words were just so important. Goodness. Goodness.
Goodness.
just doesn't matter mainly.
Yeah. I remember there was a moment when I was cycling down a path nearby to go and meet my daughter, and the thought and revelation and the laugh that all came at once was, "Oh, I've concluded that there's nothing to conclude." And I was wetting myself when I'm cycling along. Just the brilliant stupidity in it. I've concluded that there's nothing to conclude.
Concluded. Oh goodness.
That's a wise man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's the joy in catching it, right? And catching that thought process. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
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 Mm.
And I want to say that it's I've in from my perspective, it's important to be very clear. So if there's any doubts, like when a statement's made like you were never born, that really cannot be believed on face value. You need to spend time with that. Like, what the hell? If it's there to do that. But what do you mean I was never born? Yeah, what you
Mm.
are right now
Mm.
was never born.
I remember listening years ago to there was a Nisargadatta mashup. It was 2 hours of absolute pointers. I can't remember who. I've listened to this thing 1,000 times. I would listen to it every night, and I was listening to, and it was like you know, and it was beautifully narrated. You were never born. There is no body, and I would sit thinking, what does that mean? You know, and then as you say, the moment when you have some glimpse of it, if you like, or whatever, it's just
Mm.
wow, and there's no going back from that. There's no, it's like, oh, of course.
Yeah, I would put it this way, Paul. It's sort of like you realize when they say you were never born as a seeker, that can be heard as very poetic. Oh, that sounds so lovely. Boy, what a nice sentiment. And then at some point you realize, no, they mean literally.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then it becomes more obvious little things when I guess for me there was the sense of epiphany that came with it, which is the trampoline moment. You kind of hit it and realize it to be true, and then bounce back up into the mind, which I know is the mind telling me that. And then there are moments when there are like ripples that follow it, where then there's some you're doing something, and it's suddenly, oh well, of course that's not me, because that's not, you know, that thought is thinking about a person, and I'm consciousness, and you know, I'm not that thought. Or there are just, not explaining it very well, moments when it's suddenly the movement of, wow, this is what I am, stops, and then you're okay with it, and you realize that was, of course, there was never a me.
Mm.
That never ever happened. But there's a kind of going back to it, believing it, and then eventually it stops,
Mm.
and then you almost ride that movement then with, you know, consciously going with it.
Yeah, it's what I call the washing machine. Me or meing and being. And
Yeah,
that
being.
mean or being and
Mhm.
washing machine really can be hell. I don't want to downplay it because it really can be brutal. But eventually you do, by itself, you come out of it. It settles down because that's what it does. Like water. When you shake a glass of water and set it on the table, what happens?
Yeah. Mm. Would you say that there's no control over the meing and the being cycle? It's just gonna cycle however it cycles.
Well, that's kind of what needs to be seen.
Yeah. Yep.
And
That
once you,
can that can hit there. Yeah. What were you saying?
and no, that's great, Casey. Once it's seen, you can't unsee it. Those glimpses, those subtle, those, the void, the
Mhm.
unspeakableness. These are just words, but that silence and that subtleness,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
can't unsee it.
When it's noticed, like when it, yeah. Hold your beliefs dearly.
It's like when my mother died, the story of my mother. When she died, there was a lot of course, there was a lot of grief. But the insight I got in November of 2023 was, oh my gosh, her story died, but she's still here. But that essence, or that essence of her is still here, even though there's no her. That her essence is still here, but the story of the mother died with the body. So even though she played the role of the mother, her here-ness was always here.
Yeah.
The words, but and it gave me such relief. I was like, wow, like her story ended, and the body died, but her essence was still here. It's still here even now as we speak, because this here-ness, the stillness, it's the same. It's ungraspable. It's just empty.
Yeah,
So empty.
it's the same for your mom, Indira. She
Yeah.
too was never born.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's this
Damn.
there,
Beautiful.
yeah, there's this appearance. It's so beautiful when you see that it's appearing in you, the body. It's appearing as a baby and then a little boy or girl and then a teenager, and you could just see it's constantly changing the body. It's
Mm-hmm.
never the same. And you can start to notice that you're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Nothing to fear about change in that respect.
I was at forest forest school earlier today with my grandson and my daughter Evie, and the camps is set up in a pine forest, so they're very, very tall, thin trees. And Evie she looked away from the fire and looked at the trees, and she just went, "Look at the trees moving." And I looked, I was like, "Yeah," and she went, "That's so trippy." And then I was like, "Yeah, it is." Later on in the day, she said, "I'm getting a bit of a headache." So she went and lay down. We got some hammocks going. She's laying in the hammock. I went over to see her, and you're okay. We got to go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm okay. I'm feeling good. She got out of the hammock, and then she just kind of went, "Whoa!" I was like, "What?" She goes, "I've just completely hallucinated my hand."
Wow.
And then, and I was like, "Was it not there?" She went, "No." I went, "You've just again proven how you project it." She's like, "Yeah," and she literally, because she's had this feeling of this headache. Not all of her body was present when she got out of that hammock, and then it came into, she literally projected it for the experience of it and the experience of projecting it, and she was
Wow.
just blown away.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful. Gorgeous.
yeah, yeah. Just
I share that story, Indira, about your mother. When my grandmother died the day before my birthday when I was 9, and I remember everyone crying, and I felt like that presence that was there when her body was there was still there. And I was confused as to why everyone was crying, because I felt like this is the first time I've actually met my grandmother, right?
Wow.
Because my whole life I thought she was this body
Wow.
until it died, and I was like, well, the presence is still there.
Mm,
So how can
wow.
we say she died? You know?
Yeah.
So
gorgeous.
yeah, I definitely share that.
It's beautiful. Yeah. I also remember as a child, I was sharing this with a friend of mine who's on this, if you want to call it, pathless path. I was talking to her last year, and I was 10 years old. And in Trinidad, we do this ritual when the body dies. It's kind of an Indian ritual. And I'm looking at everybody, and I couldn't understand why everybody was crying. Like I had no emotion to it. And I believe that's when I started to learn to cry. I have to cry during funerals. And I actually remember pretending I didn't feel anything. I was just like, okay, she's gone. The body is gone, but I wasn't associating with everybody's emotions. But then that's when the play started, and then all of a sudden I started to cry because I wanted to be like everyone else. I started to pretend. I was like, okay, I'm gonna cry. But there, this essence of this noticing started at a very young age, and I get glimpses of these moments, and that was one of the moments. So that was, thank you, Cedric. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I used to take my saliva and just do this.
That's hilarious. Smart.
Just to pretend.
I'm gonna do that next time.
Yeah.
If I'm not
Do you know,
feeling it.
that's yeah, you've just done something for me as well there, Cedric. That was my great grandfather died when I was 11 years old, and I was in bed. It was a early Sunday morning, and we used to live in a little house, and I had kind of this tiny little room above the kitchen which had no heating. And in the winter, when it was so bad, they moved my bedroom in with my sisters, so there was the three of us sleeping in the bigger room. And I remember it was cold, and so we were all in this room, and the door opens, and my father's there, and his face was obviously at some level I already knew what was happening, but his face was this kind of mask of grief. And he says, I've got to tell you, Granddad's died. And he only lived two doors away. And he says, does anyone want to go and see him before they come and take him away? And my younger sister, who was 9 at the time, she said, yes, I do. And I buried my head in the pillow because I couldn't stand to face what my father was experiencing.
Mm.
It had nothing to do with me. There was just, what is he going through? And I hadn't understood that until just now. I just saw that whole construct then when you spoke, and it was just, oh, wow. Because for me, grief, it was always felt so strongly, but I didn't understand why. There was no understanding of why there was a sudden breakdown and crying, particularly when my great grandmother died, who was obviously they were husband and wife. When she died, I collapsed. I fell down the stairs. It was and yet it was everybody else's experience that I was experiencing. It was never a my experience.
Mm.
Um, Later in life, we lost 5 family members in 1 year. And I remember thinking, I've got to understand grief because, I was so out of control. I couldn't go into somewhere, I was just, it was awful. And I remember sitting with it one day and then seeing that the grief wasn't me. I saw the grief was expectation. The grief was victimhood. The grief was what I wanted people to see at some very deep level, and that I'd taken that on. And then when I'd seen that, the next time there was just joy. And then grief started to flow properly on its own without that very first moment of expectation that was placed on me. This face. Oh no, my children are going to be so upset because their grandfathers. I daren't tell them, and I've got to tell them. And then I suddenly accepted that like invitation to be a certain way.
Mm.
And that's so powerful.
Yeah, nobody ever tells us that we weren't born, and so
Mm.
death is for the body, and that is the celebration. Look at what the body did for you. Look how many years your feet got you around. There can be such gratitude for the body, you know?
Beautiful, Michael.
Thank you guys, each and every one of you for coming. It was a real joy hanging out with you all. Mwah. Have a good night.
Much love. Have a good night.
Ciao.